Good evening, our dear viewers, and welcome to our English News Edition. Coming up, United States has this morning received an American parliamentary delegation. In all international news, North Korea fires a missile over northern Japan. Thanks for joining us and welcome to our newsroom. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, has today on Tuesday received the American parliamentarians who are on a tour in the sub-region. The discussions were mainly focused on the regional security, including in Somalia and Yemen, as well as the ways and means that can allow our country to face security challenges in the region. The purpose of this visit to Djibouti is to strengthen the cooperation between the two countries in the framework of the fight against terrorism, and said the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, believing that it reflects the dynamism and the common desire to accentuate the ties between the two nations. Have taken part in the meeting the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and the responsible for the affairs of the Embassy of the United States in Djibouti. In an interview granted to the national television, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation has explained the objective of the American congressman's visit to Djibouti. He said that they came to Djibouti to be able to put the light on the bilateral cooperation in the area of security and military between the Republic of Djibouti and the United States. The minister has continued, adding that the Camp Lemonnier based in Djibouti has an important role in the contribution to the security of the region, the fight against terrorism, as well as piracy. And this visit of American congressmen is done regularly in order to be able to allow the American public opinion to understand a little more in what happens in Djibouti and what is the role of the Camp Lemonnier in coordination with the Republic of Djibouti in the area of security and peace in the region. During this meeting, said the Foreign Minister, we have discussed bilateral issues besides security, where the President of the Republic has found it useful to first make a thorough reason with the MPs on these issues and talk about the ways and means to consolidate the bilateral cooperation between the United States and the Republic of Djibouti. The Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Muhammad received this morning in his office Mr. Nikolai Botev, the Regional Director of the United Nations Population Fund. The meeting was attended by the Secretary General of the Prime Minister, Mr. Naguib Abdullah Kamil, and advisor to the Prime Minister Ali Silay, as well as representative of the UNDP office in Djibouti, Ms. Aisha Ibrahim. The senior United Nations official thanked the Prime Minister for his warm welcome and availability. He recalled that the Population Fund was involved in various sectors: health, training, prevention, assistance to youth, and the identification or collection of demographic data. According to him, data collection and analysis are essential for development planning. He stressed that the fund will support a project to census the Djiboutian population by 2020, and the Prime Minister said that the government is constantly seeking to improve the living conditions of the population and has launched several programs of social care initiated by the head of state, President Ismail Omar Guelleh. In the framework of the preparation for the study of the school year 2016-17, the Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mustafa Mohammed Mahmoud, has directed the work of a preparatory meeting of the broad campaign of cleaning the school establishments with a high ranking of different body consisting of defense security forces. Senior managers of the department took part in the meeting, which has helped to develop the agenda and the distribution of work between the various parties that will be engaged in this campaign of cleaning and sanitation of the public schools. In his opening remarks, the minister welcomed the enthusiasm and the rigor of the police, military, gendarmes and civil protection officers who will be mobilized to ensure the operations of cleaning and sanitation in the whole of the school establishments of the country. The minister and his interlocutors have agreed to carry out the cleaning campaign from 4 to 7 September 2017. It should be noted that the MINFOP is committed to provide the necessary material means to the men and women in uniform who will deploy with their gear assemblies and dump trucks as well as vehicles to remove the garbage, trash which litter the corridors of schools or sensitive sites in the interior of the schools. The Kempinski Palace Hotel yesterday hosted a signing ceremony of a memorandum of understanding between the Ministry of National Education and Vocational Training and the United Nations High Commission of Refugees, UNHCR. This agreement integrates the children of refugee families into the Djiboutian education system. In addition to the Minister of Education and the UNHCR representative, the signing ceremony of the agreement was attended by the Minister of the Interior Hassan Omar Mohammed, the representative of the USMPC Alexander Hamilton, and the United Nations System Coordinator. The Minister of Education was surrounded by his close collaborators in this crucial process, which will allow the children of refugee families on Djiboutian soil to have an education. The Minister of the Interior, Hassan Omar Mohammed, has on his side indicated that Djibouti is proud of its policy of openness and welcoming for people in distress. The country continues to ensure its assistance despite its meager means, has indicated the Minister. And during his intervention, the Minister of Education, Mustafa Mohammed Mahmoud, has recalled that the Republic of Djibouti has always battled to accommodate the people fleeing the horrors of the war or other calamities. He mentioned that education is a right. This is not only a fundamental right, he said, but it is also one of the most valuable assets that a refugee may have. Other news of this edition, the Minister of Energy responsible for natural resources, Younis Ali, has received today in his cabinet a large Chinese delegation led by the Vice President of the company, Polish CL Petroleum Group, Mr. Li Wei, and Deputy Director of the China Development Bank. This courtesy visit falls within the framework of the project of gas pipeline, the liquefaction plant, and the gas terminal between Ethiopia and the Republic of Djibouti, which will be funded by Polish CL Petroleum Group Holding Limited to up to $4 billion. The project in question focuses on the construction of a gas pipeline which will carry up to 12 billion cubic meters of natural gas per year from Ethiopia to Djibouti. The liquefaction plant in the device will be localized to Demerjok. The construction of the pipeline of approximately 700 kilometers of Ethiopia in Djibouti will allow Ethiopia to export gas to China and to allow the socio-economic development in the region. The Minister of Energy, Mr. Younis Ali, has been assisted by the Inspector of the State General, Mr. Isa Hassan Sultan, and by his close collaborators in Current Secretary General Abdul Kamir Abdullahi Mohammed, the technical advisor in charge of hydrocarbons, Mrs. Rahma Ali Hassan. In the crusade against the import and distribution of counterfeit electrical devices, the Ministry of Energy, in collaboration with the Ministry Delegate to the Ministry of Economy and Finances in charge of trade and the Ministry of Budget, including Customs and the Police, have seized a large number of counterfeit electrical appliances in the local hardware stores. The Ministry of Energy, in collaboration with these various partners, carried out the past Monday to the destruction by integration of the seized devices to the center of the landfill known as Duda. The Acting Secretary General of the Ministry of Energy, Abdul Karim Abdullahi, Director of Energy, Guled Mohammed, Director of Internal Trade and Consumer Protection, Abdul Rahman Fuad, as well as the representative of the National Police, Lendin Abdul Rahman, were present during this destruction. On the instruction of the Head of State, Ismail Murgeli, the Ambassador of the Republic of Djibouti in Paris, Mr. Ayad Moussa Yahya, raised yesterday to the rank of Officer of the National Order of June 27, Colonel Antoine Champeau, a historian of the French Army, which has written extensively on the participation of African combatants in the First and Second World Wars, including the Somali Battalion. The colonial forces at the time forced thousands of brave men incorporated in the French army units to fight with them against Germany. They were turned from their lands in all the former colonies from the east, north and west part of the African continent. Tomorrow begins the great pilgrimage of the year. Information and awareness session was organized last night by the committee in charge of the Hajj for the benefit of all the pilgrims. The whole process and the steps to be followed have been explained, and Sheikh Jumale and Abdul Qadir animated the different sessions. The pilgrims were present on the date of the displacement toward Muna for the prayer on Mount Arafat, the main stage of Hajj, on Thursday. The Hajj committee has previously visited the sites where the pilgrims are to be deployed, and all arrangements have been made for the climb to take place under the best conditions. The Minister of Health, Dr. Jama Al-Mouki, has called for an operation of blood collection throughout the hospitals, and it was the turn of Dar al-Hanad maternity staff to participate massively for the blood donation. In fact, many of the maternity nursing staff have rushed into the meeting room, requisitioning for this purpose to fill the pockets with precious liquids, perfectly aware of their daily importance in the exercise of their duties job. And then in collaboration with the National Blood Transfusion Center, it was the staff of the Sheiko Hospital of Balbala who showed off Sunday, August 27, donating themselves by giving their blood. And these collection operations were carried out successively, in counting the number of packets collected and the enthusiasm provoked by such an event around. In the coming days, these blood collection activities will be held in other hospitals such as Beltier General Hospital, before expanding to other government departments and bodies. Finally, the National Blood Transfusion Center is responsible for plan and coordinate its blood collection activities through the setting up of an annual calendar of visits of its theme to the level of all entities requested. The summer tournament mobilizes us every year, the entire population. It remains the major event and highly anticipated in this locality very far from the country. Under the eyes of an admiring crowd and facing a leading sun, the two formations engaged in a real tactical and physical battle in a festive and friendly atmosphere. The ceremony was attended by representative of the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Abdul Qadir Ahmed Daoud, Ahmed Ali, Lieutenant Abdul Rahman Abdul Qadir Drar, and the General Okal. Besides football, the winners of the discipline athletics, volleyball, and the educational contests were also rewarded. Let's bear in mind that it is the only northern community where girls participate in summer tournament. The preparation of the Great Solidarity Concert in honor of Fatouma Mansour have been ongoing for nearly 2 weeks in the central seat of the Arhotaba band in Djibouti. All the artists of the country, composers, singers, guitarists, pianists, drummers, technicians, gathered for the realization of this great solidarity concert that will be held on 2nd September at the Palace of the People in at the Saline. Fatouma Mansour, famous singer of Djibouti, began her career as a singer at the age of 15 and continues since to shine on the roof of Djibouti thanks to its beautiful voice in the acoustic pitch struck all the population without distinction. The voice of Mansour attracts and delights all Djiboutians. She sang also in Somali and in Arab languages with the Sudanese melodies. The Djiboutian remains anonymous on her unique voice in its kind, which has managed to fill the heart of thousands of our fellow citizens. She has organized concerts everywhere in the world, including in Brussels or still in Australia, where the diaspora of the Afro community focuses in majority. The diva of the Djiboutian song is, however, taken of tuberculosis and remains at the Hospital General Peltier. The artists are united in all corners of the country in the 3 local languages because the family of artists remains united and indivisible, and want to organize a concert for the diva of the Djiboutian song to pay for quality care for a star of high level. The sale of tickets of entry began today in the morning. And now, let's move on to the rest of the world. Leaders from Europe's Big 4 continental powers, 3 African nations, met in Paris on Monday to tackle the European migrant crisis. The leaders sought to agree on an action plan, notably to begin the asylum process in Chad and Nigeria. Saeed Mohammed has more to tell us.
The leaders of France, Germany, Italy and Spain agreed Monday on a new policy to grant asylum to vulnerable migrants who apply for protection while in Africa instead of their destination country. How much the new measures would cost and many specifics remain unclear. In a joint statement, the four leaders acknowledged the need to initiate a process in Chad and Niger that would lead to the resettlements of particularly vulnerable migrants in Europe. They announced they plan to carry out protection missions in the African nations in cooperation with the United Nations Refugees and Migration Agency.
It was in our top stories. North Korea launched a ballistic missile eastward over Japan and into the Pacific Ocean. The latest missile launched by the Kim Jong-un regime, which has scaled up its missile test of late, firing 18 missiles this year alone, is particularly provocative because the rockets flight back traversed the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido, some 850 miles northeast of the North Korean capital. Japanese officials said the missile broke into 3 pieces, which landed some 730 miles off the coast of Hokkaido. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe called on an emergency National Security Council meeting in response to the launch and said the Japanese government was prepared to take all the measures to protect people's lives. Launching a missile and flying it over our country was a reckless act and it represents a serious threat without precedent to Japan, Abe said of the Northern Korean missile test. North Korea's other recent missile tests were intentionally fired to land in the sea between the two countries, making Tuesday's launch notably more aggressive action by Pyongyang. North Korea fired a missile over Japan in 1998 and a portion of a fired North Korean rocket crossed Japan in 2009. The move is a dramatic escalation and particularly dangerous, according to analysis, because the potential for the poorly made rockets to break into pieces during flight, which could cause an unintentional strike on Japan. More from the international scene. To close up this edition, the European Union's chief negotiator Michel Barnier said on Monday he was concerned at the slow progress of Brexit talks, while his British counterpart David Davis called for imagination and flexibility to move on. More details in this video.
The European Union and Britain started a turnaround of Brexit negotiation. EU negotiator Michel Barnier berated the British government for what he perceived as a lack of focus and insufficient progress over the last 5 months since divorce proceedings were triggered. We must start negotiations seriously, he said. We need UK papers that are clear in order to have constructive negotiation, and the sooner we remove the ambiguity, the sooner we will be in a position to discuss the future relation and a transition on both sides. Both sides are facing a March 2019 deadline to seal a deal for Britain to leave the EU. The bulk of negotiations need to wrap up next year to allow for formal ratification by both sides.
That's all for this edition. It's been nice to have you with us, and have a good night.